My hot take on this front, and you and I would probably disagree on this. I think that like we've created a bit of a subculture in worship and tech ministry for the sake of like we have our team culture. Like there's some worship teams that have like their own values, their own core values as a worship team.
Separate from the church.
Like they've got catering and like green rooms and all this stuff taken on this like, it really just causes this like separation because the church has multiple services and they want to care for their team or whatever. And like, there's like this worship subculture that has become their church. So becoming part of the church is no longer in importance.
Because that's their community.
Because now, yeah, like that is their, and typically this happens more in large churches, right? Like they go, oh, you want to get connected? Start serving. And then you'll find your church here. And I think that can tend to build a subculture of people not in actually engaging with the church. I saw that for myself.
And they look at Planning Center more than the Bible. Planning Center is their Bible.
Planning Center, wait. What areas do you think it's positive? Because I do believe that the issue is this kind of subculture of worship and tech team being our church. What areas do you think that actually might be necessary? Because I do think that that's what's instigating some of this. People don't want to be a part of the church because they already have their own little club over here.
I mean, from the get, I don't think it's a problem that we have a community inside of worship and production. I don't think it's a problem that I enjoy being around worship and production, those I serve with, in and out on weekends and weeknight rehearsals and Wednesdays.
Because no matter what team you are in the church,
yeah,
whether it's parking or kids or worship or production, you're going to have people that you serve with that you gravitate toward, that you like.
I don't think it's a problem that your culture leans heavy towards hanging with the people you do ministry with. But when your wife sits every Sunday in the sanctuary without her husband, or y'all just don't go at all because you're not on Planning Center and you didn't hit confirm, you hit decline, so you're just taking the weekend off, you are neglecting a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
Myself personally, I would find myself going to church when I wasn't scheduled, but I would always find myself backstage, hanging out with the pastors, hanging out with the worship team, and my wife was still sitting out in the congregation by herself.
Yeah.
And I'd get up and just go somewhere else and hang out while she's sitting there.
That's a bit of a problem.
It's a problem. So that's a problem.
As much as it would be a problem for her to stand up and go back in the green room during the message because that's where you were.
Yeah.
Like it's not just that you're separated, but that you're not worshiping together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would also, I mean, from my own personal experience, sometimes I'd watch the message backstage. Be like, oh, I'll just go sit on the couch. It's comfier. I can kind of multitask. And I think there are these things that we should look out for. We think they might be helpful or beneficial, but really they're just like temptations to kind of hide from the congregation. We've talked about this, like backstage culture, green rooms, stuff like that. Some of that I actually don't even think is necessary to have in a church. Like why? I do think that some of the isolation being a part of the church is even like how we come on stage sometimes. It's like we come from backstage and then like there's a door backstage to our car. Like we're not even...
Instead of walking up from the seats. Yeah.
Like that's something that I don't feel... I'm curious about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of a new thing in the church. Like when I say new, like last 25, 30 years, right? Some denominations, people poke fun of the AG because like everyone sits in church up front. And when it's time for band to come up, they walk up onto the stage, and when it's time for teaching, they walk down and sit down up front.
Yeah.
And in some churches, it's every single service if they have multiple services. I actually think that could be something more churches make a habit of.
Yeah. And it's weird because there is a tension, there's a balance. Because if I'm asking somebody to show up before 6 a.m. and serve until after 1 p.m., the fact that I would have a space for them to have breakfast is not a bad thing, right? It's like I want to provide a space for them to connect. Maybe they do need to eat. Maybe they do need to decompress a little bit. Like maybe they do need to go over, hey, we blew this transition, so let's talk about this between services. Like that's one thing. Yeah. That's fine. But by the same token, how much more ministry could happen if they were in the lobby interacting with people, serving people face to face instead of just from the platform. Like that, I would love it if we could create communities where it could be both.
You're quiet.
I'm thinking. I have a yard on the side of my house, and I want to turn it into like a putting green area. And I was just thinking through some ways that I could do that. But I would say I don't disagree with what you're saying, because I automatically go to as well, I want to have a space to where those who are serving all day, because the culture exists in churches. If you serve one, you got to serve all of them. Mm-hmm. We can't have a guitar player show for the 8 and another guitar player show for the 9:30, and that's the culture. It's just easier to do it that way. I stand with that philosophy as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like, hey, we do one rehearsal, everyone's there, you do all services. I think that's just the easiest way and the best way to do it, my opinion, maybe for a different podcast. But because that is the ask, like you were saying, I think it is okay to provide a space for people to get away from. Specifically in our largest churches, where our pastors, whether they do this to themselves or not, they do become a celebrity to the people that they are on stage in front of and preaching to every weekend. And people are people, humans are humans. They want to get in front of that guy or that girl and make themselves known because they're humans. Hey, I was here. I need this. I see me. And so they do put themselves on these pastoral platform personalities more than others. So they do have a space to get away from. The part that is hurting us is that we think ministry takes place in the green room when it doesn't. And we've talked about this before. Ministry is not a green room thing. Ministry is going to take place in your lobbies. It's going to take place Monday through Friday. It's going to take place, worship gathering. Everybody's coming together to worship and hear the word, and sure, salvation can take place. But man, I think if you are a green room person and you're in ministry, you need to reevaluate your heart of where, or just make a simple prayer on the way to church. God, reveal to me someone today that I could have a spiritual conversation with today at church. I promise you that's probably not going to come in your green room. That was my thought. Get out.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The overarching topic we're going after is why do we keep finding ourselves disconnected in the worship and tech ministry from the rest of the church? And from my personal experience and talking with all the churches that we serve, I find that volunteers don't struggle with this as much. It actually is something that staff lead them towards. And from my perspective, and this might be a hot take, some of it's unformed, I think the staff, this might be a wake-up call for church staff, because when we're in a staff position, we have this just kind of natural separation that starts, because we're there on Sunday, we're getting paid. This is our job. Like, there's just so much different between us and the people who are attending the church on Sunday. But for volunteers, a lot of churches I talk to, volunteers are serving maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. It's really not that much to ask of a volunteer to show up and be engaged all Sunday morning, be out in the lobby, be present with the people, make sure that they're fed before they show up. So I got a really quick story. This is maybe maybe more like 8 years ago. In church, we decided that we needed to have special childcare for the worship and tech team on Sundays because of the burden of having to be a parent and also take care of our kids. In the morning, we had multiple services. Well, after a few months of doing that, guess the only people who were taking advantage of that service for our church was staff people. Literally only staff people who took advantage of it. And I feel I see that even with catering. I see that with all these other things we do for the good of our worship and tech volunteers. But what I continuously see is it's just the staff wanting to make their job easier. And that's not everywhere. So I can't throw the baby out the bathwater, but I see that so often. It's like, well, we got to take care of our volunteers. We got to make sure they're fed. It's like, I think you don't want to have to worry about your meals. And so you're bringing in food so that you don't have to coordinate with your wife to bring you a bagel when she comes to church or something. Like, it just sometimes feels like we're trying to make it so easy for people to serve. Serving is a sacrifice. And so how I connect all this, I'm just going, we start to treat ourselves as special. Like, well, we're the exception. We're the ones who need catering, not our congregation. We're the ones who need special babysitters, not our congregation, because we're doing all these special things. We're the ones who need a breather in the back because leading is such a burden. And so we start to convince ourselves that we're different and that we're not just a part of the congregation. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree that not all churches would have that view, like you said, but there's probably some out there that definitely have that. It's a little bit easier to do my job if I can get people here to do it for me. And where there's some ways I can't pay them, but I can get them food, you know. At the same time, I also think it's, like I just said, I think it's fairly easy to feed your volunteers, to get them there, to keep them there. I mean, you're so like in a space or an environment of a 6 a.m. call time to a 1 p.m. out, and they need to be there for all the rehearsals. They don't have time to leave. Where does that food come from?
Yeah.
How can I honor them?
Yeah.
How can I thank them for being there? And they can't leave because the commitment's there.
Yeah.
So it's like, as a staff, it's like, well, then we'll just feed you.
Yeah.
To say thank you and to keep you happy and fed while you serve for 8 hours.
Yeah. Which is totally fair.
Yeah.
I think a bigger issue, and this might be where people feel even more tension, is, for churches who use contractors. I know, early in my church life, ministry life, I know of people who their whole deal was, I'm a young 20-something guitar player, and I can make a living collecting a check from the Sunday morning service, the youth service in the afternoon, the midweek singles Bible study. It's like they're collecting checks, but they're not really part of the church. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is a bigger, it's between them and God at some point, but that's a bigger issue, right? Mm-hmm. I would much rather have a team who's actually there for the ministry part, not just the planning center and because I get that, okay, you are getting paid and you want to be a professional musician. This is how you're going to start to make a living as a young person. But man, that could become a really bad habit over time of like, okay, so you don't want to be like, this is just another gig. Like, this is like, where is your heart? Where is your spiritual growth? Where is your discipleship in this? It's like, it's a little tenuous.
It is. And so as a leader, if you're listening to this, you have to know that if that individual only comes because they hit Accept on Planning Center and they're contracted only and they're making their $250 a day, you are doing them a great disservice by not encouraging them and challenging them to be a part of that church body, because they're coming to receive a paycheck to do their thing. So I think that's what you're saying, Jeff. They are not technically a part of the body.
Yeah.
But they're not a part of the body. From what I hear and you say, you're not saying we want you to be a part of the church so that your number matters and that we see that on our data and charts. We want you to be a part of the church body because your spouse can be affected by this. Your kids can be affected by this. The people you invite can be affected by this. The generations that can change can be.
And you can be affected by this.
You can be affected by this.
God has something to say to you if you're actually engaged in this.
So as a leader, know that you are doing them a disservice if you're not encouraging them and challenging them to be a part of the church body. And so what does that look like, Dylan? How does a contracted player be a part of it? I don't know. Simply invite them to something that is not the church service, that has nothing to do with their skill sets. The next time you and all the guys go out and hang out, invite that contracted player to come hang out with you. And oh yeah, by the way, we don't need your guitar or your pedal boards, because when you're not doing that, you're just going to come hang out. And then they're putting them in an environment to where they can see Christians and like-minded guys, assuming that this guitar player is just a contracted player. He may or may not be a Christian. I don't know. Plenty of churches that'll contract you if you can play good. That's fine. But get that person.
That's not fine.
So get that person in there. So I'm saying that's fine if that's your approach.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. But get that person inside of something so that they can actually experience life change themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's have that conversation for a second. Is that fine?
To be more specific, what's fine?
To hire someone who's only a musician and has no spiritual investment in what you're doing.
I personally don't think it's fine. We did a podcast about this. I think you and I did one, and then you and I did a follow up to it. We got obliterated by a bunch of people, and it really showed there is volunteering in the church does not make sense to the world. It doesn't make sense. Like it literally, it looks like abuse from the outside looking in. It's like, it feels like a cult where you've just convinced all these people who have natural giftings. Like to think about, like, let's just say we don't know the Lord. We all have giftings in what we do. You produce, you mix audio. Like I do audio, I lead worship, whatever. And we've worked really hard at those crafts. We don't know the Lord. We don't know anything about the church and all this. And then we look from the outside looking and we're like, they're expecting people who have my skill sets to just come in and do this for free. It feels very offensive. And so it doesn't make sense unless you follow the Lord and you read scripture and you understand the why behind us serving in church. And we've talked about this before as well. When you start to fill positions on a contractor basis, because, well, the only reason you would do that is because you don't have those people in your church, right? Well,
or they're not good enough to your standards.
Or they're not good enough to your standards. Well, then you might need to revisit your church's sound, quote unquote. What are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? It seems like you're trying to achieve something that you don't have the people for in your church.
Yeah.
But you're so busy trying to be that one church down the street, you'll do anything you need to do to get the guitar player that can play the lead line to that one song so it sounds just like the record, and at the end of the day, nobody cares. But you do. And so you'll use the church's money to go find that guitar player so you don't have to deal with training your team or finding that youth volunteer who's not very good at guitar but could be in 3 years if you invested in them. It's too hard. It's not happening. So that's why I don't think it's okay. I think it's a shortcut that people are.
So you think it's a development issue, not a spiritual issue. You're okay. Are you okay with a non-believer standing on a platform inside of a church leading people in worship as a guitar player?
I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that was the question though, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I think if we have a new believer who's a great musician who comes in and we put them on a stage, that's like, I'm not talking about necessarily a level of spiritual maturity, but I am talking about a level of buy-in. Like, I think there needs to be.
What about a production guy? Audio, video, lighting.
Same.
See, that would be a lot of disagreeing with that. People would, if you can do mix, if you can mix, come on in and mix, baby.
Yeah, and look,
that's fine. We can disagree.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
No, I like it.
Well, we're talking about why, again, tying this back to the big picture. Why does the worship and tech team feel disengaged from the rest of the church? Which is an important thing. These are the people who are leading the church in worship. We say this all the time. Audio guys are leaders.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're helping lead the church. Mm-hmm. Like every single position is critical.
You guys have heard me say before, anybody who's listened to MxU has heard me say this before. We, as the worship and production team, serve a priestly role. Our job is to prepare the people of God to experience the presence of God in this place. Like we're creating an environment for people to take a step in their faith. If I'm somebody who thinks this faith is a bunch of crap, then that is literally distracting, detracting, pulling away from the mission of why we're here. Why would I put people in place who don't believe in what we're doing if our job is to help people come to belief? Mm-hmm. It makes no sense to me that you would have a non-believer trying to draw people to belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We could talk about this for days.
And I know people disagree, and I know that people are in a huge bind and they need somebody who can push the right button at the right time. And I get all that. I'm just saying if the mission of the church is to truly draw people closer to the God of the universe, then it doesn't make any sense to me to have somebody in that seat who doesn't want to do that for themselves, much less help other people experience that.
I had an incredible conversation with somebody who's from one of my clients' teams on the production team, and they're all Nigerian. And it was a 3-hour conversation in the hotel lobby that accidentally happened. This guy ran Pro Presenter and Resolum for this client, and everybody in the building is volunteer. Everybody, which was already like, how's it even a thing? And I was just asking him, it was just a one-on-one setting. I was like, I want to learn this about your culture. I want to learn this about the Nigerian church. I want to learn this. I want to learn this. And I mean, for an hour, I just asked and asked and asked. And he was just answer. I was learning. And then he goes, let me ask you a question. He goes, I want to learn about your culture. He goes, why do y'all pay people in the American church?
Like in general?
In general, pay anybody.
Even the pastor?
Yeah, why pay anybody?
Wow.
And I was just like, well, like I make money somehow, And he's like, well, great. I'm an account manager. I work for a couple of artist agencies out of Nigeria, but I also work full time at my church, but I'm a volunteer. So where he's asking genuinely, where did it go wrong in the American church that it's just okay to pay somebody to do the job? We don't do that where we live. And I was like, man. And it was such a culture shock of like how different church is done outside of America.
Yeah.
And we talked about it for a while. I mean, it was very educational to me and challenging to me because I kept saying paid. And so he wanted to know, like, what are you referring to when you say paid? And I would tell him. He was like, so do you pay your like kids ministers? And I was like, yeah, we pay our kids pastors. He's like,
some do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's so interesting because for those listening, you can imagine it's difficult because we see what we've seen. We know those of you listening, some of you would kill to have a paid children's pastor. And then some of you worship leaders are not even paid. And you're bivocational or fully volunteer, and that's a beautiful thing too.
And I'm not saying American church is wrong. I'm just saying it is very different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different. The American church is very different than most churches, I would have to say, just based off that one conversation of like eye-opening the sense of we jump to day rates and we jump to how much can we get paid. Again, ROI society, we jump to that conclusion, and that never even would cross his mind.
Yeah.
He literally didn't even fathom. Like I can't fathom being paid for me serving the church.
Yeah.
So it's just different. I don't know.
I do believe, again, tying it back to this, we have this subculture, this disconnection with actually being part of the church. Because we're talking about, yes, obviously there's going to be disconnection from the church if they're not actually a part of the church. And we're just hiring some dude because he knows how to play guitar. Like that seems obvious to me. Some people still don't see that. But we should probably make sure the people on the platform in the tech booth are members of our church. But aside from that, I really do think that it's a leadership issue. I just, in my years of doing ministry, it was never, the volunteers weren't the issue, the people who were serving the ministry. It was the staff. It was just the leader or the group of leaders that sets the precedent for how do we interact with our congregation on Sunday? How are we apart? Are people listening to the message? Are they sitting in with their spouse? Are they a part of a group? All those things that we say you should be doing this, but then they just don't do it. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, I think I really do believe this is a leadership issue. But it's funny because we have this podcast. We're doing this podcast right now because we've heard so many leaders go, my worship team we're disconnected. How do I build a culture where that we're connected with our church? And I just often am surprised by that after I ask them a few questions of like, okay, so who are your musicians? Are they members of your church? Oh, no, they're not.
Well, that's why, because they're
not part of your church.
They're not connected. Yeah.
I do feel like it's that's just the worship production manager. They just kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, they're janitors.
But everyone else has to go by our policies and procedures. Do you want to be a small group leader, given, growing, baptized, saved? Do you want to be a student small group leader? Okay, you do? Okay, then you got to be giving, growing, saved, baptized. Do you want to be a volunteer? Okay, then you got to be, can you play guitar? Great, go, you're starting next Sunday. You go over here to this world. What about you? I've seen that firsthand in churches I've even worked at, to where people get away with a lot less than what we would over here on this side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting.
I think some really practical ways, because I know we've kind of harped on some of the issues we see here, some of the practical ways that people overcome this problem. If you're a worship leader and tech leader or tech leader, and you're not doing like a team night gathering where you are communicating these cultural components, what you're going after as a church. And again, I not to just have another little mini church session where you can have community with your team, but to actually cast vision for, hey, this is the expectation. You're going to be a part of our church in this way, and so on and so forth. That is something that we don't see enough. We don't see enough intention. There's a lot of time spent like in my household, it's like you can spend an evening with your wife, but there's no quality there. You're not actually talking or whatever. It's the same thing that happens in worship and tech team on Sundays. It's like you're around each other the whole weekend, but is there any depth outside of what's happening on stage?
Yeah.
And so setting aside another time that's intentional where you can actually spiritually invest in your team. And because I've had some people go, well, if I have a team night, then I'm going to have to pay people to show up to that because all my people are contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big problem.
That's a problem. Like, if you can't host a team night because nobody would show up,
That's not a team.
it's not a team. Like, and I know that might ruffle your feathers, but like, hear us. Just, we care.
Well, it's not a volunteer team. It doesn't make it not a team because as a business owner, if I have
sure.
you know,
I get you.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not the team you want.
sure,
That we
serving
hear you
in that
say,
capacity.
the team that you're saying you want,
yeah.
you know, a team that is representative of your church, that is a part of your church, that has experienced life change in your church, in your faith community.
Real time example. If I was to host a Zoom call before the next big show we're doing, and I need 35 contractors for 1 hour on that show, I'm always thinking through who's going to charge me for that 1 hour because I asked them to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And then I internally, I'm like, I don't really want that person anymore on our squad.
Yeah.
So then on the volunteer side of things for Church World, it's like, hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It makes sense. I think a really honest question that we need to ask ourselves more, and it sounds simple, trite, but how often are we spiritually investing in our team as much as we are scheduling them? There's like so much of like the task of being a team leader in worship and tech ministry is getting like roles filled week in and week out. We know Sunday's happening. And so it has to happen. And it seems mundane, but it's happening often. You're constantly, hey, can I get you to fill this spot? Can I get you to fill this spot?
Yeah, but it's transactional. It's not relational.
Yeah. And like, again, feels cheap and easy to say, but are we actually doing it? Are we investing in our people spiritually? And if you're like, well, no, because it feels uncomfortable, I don't know where they're at spiritually. Sometimes I think that's the barrier. Like, well, we don't go that deep personally. We're more interested in like kind of going that deep from the stage to the congregation, but one-on-one, that feels strange. So I think, I think that there's some work to be done there in actually pastoring our team spiritually. And what's funny is I see the churches that do this the best are the ones where the worship pastor might kind of struggle technically and like with their skill, to be honest with you, which is maybe dangerous to say, but like some of the people, because they got into ministry not to play guitar or to sing, but because they genuinely want to pastor people. Mm-hmm. And where we see people struggle is those who are like, I love to play guitar, I love to sing, I love music, and the church is a place I can do that, I guess.
Yeah.
And so then they go fill roles on their team. They're not interested in pastoring those people.
Yeah. And I think for the musician on stage who struggles with this, maybe I would just challenge those folks. Like, is the platform for you just a chance to show off your skill, or are you actually concerned with leading people? Like, and I think a question that impacts that is like, where is your personal worship? Where's your personal Bible study? Where's your, like, do you open your Bible as often as you open Planning Center? If not, that's a problem. I mean, I think, because if you're engaged spiritually and growing spiritually as a disciple, then you're going to want to be in the service. You're going to want to hear the word. You're going to want to be a part of a growing community. But if it's just transactional for you and you're just there to, deliver from the platform, I would just challenge you to dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Anyways, to recap, you feel like your team is disconnected from your congregation, feeling that cultural separation or maybe subculture within your church. Maybe first look at yourself, how you're leading them, first and foremost, and then just be honest with yourself. Like, where are we at? If you're paying musicians today who are not part of your church, we love to talk about that one. It gets people going. But if that's the case, that's okay. No shame in that. But be honest about where you want to go and then start taking the steps to getting there. Practically, the way we can help you, We put together, I mentioned earlier, a team night guide. That will be in the description below. It's free. If you've never done a team night, we try to give you step-by-step instruction on how we see churches win with their team nights. Get that. It'll help you if you want to take that step. We'll also put together a 4-week devotional guide that is in the description below as well. It's free if you're wanting to take next steps in how you can actually lead your team spiritually and not just schedule them for next Sunday. That guide will help you do that. So I hope you check those out. Thank you so much for joining us on the MxU podcast. We will see you next time.